Rhymesayers Entertainment is an American independent recording label founded in 1995 in Minneapolis. Its legacy is incredibly underappreciated within the hip-hop community, and in this video we will cover the history of the label, its key members and releases up to where they are now. Before covering the output and creation of a label, it's important to cover its founding members, like the group Atmosphere. Atmosphere is a rap group that formed in 1996 based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, primarily consisting of MC Shawn, also known as Slug, and producer DJ Anthony Davis, better known as Ant, with other rotating members. Another one of the group's co-founders went by the name of Derek Turner, also known as D-Spawn or Wreck the Heavyweight. Shawn and Derek met while both were in high school. They attended Washburn High, located at 201 West 49th Street. Their duo was initially called Mental Subjects, then changed to A Rhythmic Culture before finally changing their name to Urban Atmosphere. Originally, Spawn was the rapper and Slug was the DJ, but Turner eventually convinced Shawn to start rapping. At this time, Slug and Spawn had not yet met Ant. This would change when Ant was putting up flyers asking people to work with him around the city. Slug, Spawn, and fellow Minneapolis rapper Musab, who at the time went by the name Beyond and later would become Sab the Artist, would all link up at Ant's place to record.
I had actually met Musab prior to the Headshots thing, and I met him through Unicus.
And I walk in and Slug's in the living room just chilling or whatever. From that moment on, me and Slug became tight, and he was just always coming over to the house. And like I said, I had like the hip hop house.
I knew what I wanted to do, and I just, and that was just to make music with rappers. I just put out some flyers to get people to come to my studios, and the trick was I was charging people. But I really wasn't gonna charge nobody. I was looking for people, like-minded individuals to make art with.
They all hit it off, and with some convincing, Slug and Ant were able to get Spawn on board with Ant working with him more. This was a great opportunity for both Daly and Turner because working with Ant taught them how to properly structure songs and strengthen their deliveries. At this point, the group, now a trio, dropped the urban from their name and became Atmosphere. Slug, Ant, and Spawn teamed up with other rappers and figures like the group's Full Circle and Black Hole, as well as Cess and Eclipse of the Abstract Pact, Musab, Brent Sayers, also known as Siddiq, Divine, and Mr. Gene Pool. They formed a super collective called the Headshots. The group would later evolve into the record label Rhymesayers, which is spearheaded by Slug, Ant, Musab, and Siddiq, with Siddiq acting as the CEO of the label. Sayers at the time was known for being down with Ralph X, a childhood friend that formed the organization, the Universal Parliament of Hip Hop. This organization would host microphone check showcases where they had big names come out and perform, but would also invite local talents to come out and perform and compete with one another. Atmosphere and Musab were invited to showcase their skills, which is how they all met.
A cat that I was tight with and grew up with, Ralph X, had started an organization called Universal Parliament of Hip Hop. We clicked up and started doing these shows called microphone check showcases, and basically we would bring out a national act and have a showcase of local acts that would basically, it was almost like a best of the bands type of event. So it would be a competition of local acts to go on to this final show.
I knew that Siddiq was part of real parties that were cracking off, real things, real events. And so I kind of was like about it. I was like, we're gonna go to that. And then eventually it led us to performing at some of these events, and it's just slowly the relationship grew.
They decided to form a group because they all shared similar interests. Rhymesayers was founded in 1995 as an independent label, with Eyedea being the group's former distributor. At this moment in time, they work with Secretly Distribution. The label is located in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But back to the Headshots for a moment. Between 1995 and 1998, they released a DJ mix, a few mixtapes, a live album, and a studio album, totaling in 6 releases. These tapes were mostly live shows and freestyle sessions recorded in Siddiq's basement, with pre-existing hip-hop songs being spliced in here and there, at least on the first volume, the WB Boy Sessions, released in 1995.
Once we started doing the shows, I kind of knew that it would be to our advantage to be able to put something in people's hands, give them something to go home with, and also be able to monetize, that aspect of it. So we started doing the Headshots tapes. Initially, we just knew we wanted to do something. So coming from that mixtape culture, we decided we'd just go ahead and do like a mixtape for the first one. We didn't have a lot of songs recorded at that time, and we were kind of just getting started with a lot of that. So Slug being a DJ, Eclipse of the Abstract Pact being a DJ, I kind of took both of those guys and was like, all right, you do one side of the tape and you do the other side, and then we'll have cats come down and just freestyle in between, and we'll kind of just throw that all together, and then we've got something to offer people. And that's kind of where the first Headshots tape came from, the WB Boy Sessions.
They mostly made these tapes to get some money to get by so they could put their best work on a full-length album.
Another whole thing I used to do too was I would encourage people not to put out their best songs on these tapes, on these Headshot tapes, because only 50 people heard this shit, you know what I mean? What's the point? And they weren't perfected. They were just, let's just, to get by, to make a couple bucks, to get it get it really moving, and then let's take these really good songs and make a really good album out of them. So I was always encouraging anybody I worked with, you know, don't take these tapes so serious, you know. Let's just, you know, concentrate on making an album.
Crypt did open a show for the legendary New York group Black Moon, where they were able to be recognized by more people outside of the Minneapolis area. The Headshots crew hit a bump in the road, with rapper Chest of the Abstract Pact passing away on October 10th, 1996 in a car accident. They dedicated the 4th tape to him, where they put some of his better songs, What Little He Had, on the record as a tribute. At this point, Rhymesayers will start releasing classic, game-changing records. For the sake of sanity, not every album released on the label will be covered, just the most pivotal. In 1996, Rhymesayers released their first album, Beyond's Comparison, and shortly after, on August 1st, 1997, Atmosphere made their debut album, Overcast. Atmosphere's debut caused a splash and opened them up to a wider audience thanks to the single Scapegoat receiving a lot of college radio play. This led to increased live performances like at the Front, First Avenue, and 7th Street Entry. In 1998, Slug met Murs of the California group Living Legends at First Avenue, while the latter's group was opening for the legendary Oakland group The Hieroglyphics. They exchanged CDs for their debut, Atmosphere's Overcast and Murs' For Real, and became mutual fans of each other's work. They later formed the group Felt in the year 2000. More on that group later though. The next important release was the self-titled album by the supergroup The Dino Spectrum, released in March 1998. The Dino Spectrum was the supergroup consisting of Slug, I Self-Defined, Mr. Jeanpool, Full Circle, and Musab. This group didn't have a real long-term game plan. Everyone had their own creative differences and endeavors they wanted to pursue. It was more of a spontaneous group release. While not released on Rhymesayers, an interesting detour for Slug was when he teamed up with the West Coast label Anticon members, alias Doswan and Soul, for their short-lived collective The Deep Puddle Dynamics. Slug met Soul while Soul was a part of the group The Live Poets, and Doswan at the same time on June 26, 1998 at a recording studio. Doswan and Slug were both in the battle rap scene, and the three artists connected over their shared interest in introspective hip-hop. Together with producer Alias, the four artists formed the group Deep Puddle Dynamics that same year. Their only album, The Taste of Rain Why Kneel, was released in 1999 on Anticon Records, and was recorded within the span of a couple of weeks. This was also more of a spur-of-the-moment group that was formed by strangers who shared a mutual interest in each other's work. The group disbanded in the year 2000, but they all remain on good terms. At this time too, Spawn led Atmosphere due to creative differences. One of the brightest signees to the label was one Michael Larson, aka Eyedea. Larson grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, about an 18-minute drive from Minneapolis. He was a hip-hop prodigy, starting off as a breakdancer before he developed arthritis as a teenager and couldn't perform anymore. Between 1997 and 2001, Larson tore off the battle rap circuit, winning first place at Scribble Jam in 1999, as well as Rocksteady Anniversary in Blaze Battle New York in 2000, the latter hosted by hip-hop legend KRS-One. These battles included him taking out notable MCs like Immortal Technique, Peace of the legendary Freestyle Fellowship, Peck FM, and otherwise, who was mostly known for defeating Eminem at the 1997 Rap Olympics. He even did a freestyle with MC Juice, who also battled and defeated Eminem.
Yo, I'ma let you know right now you ain't shit in the tournament. Your name's E-Dub like an Eric Sermon squid. Up on the microphone, I straight use agility. Why you walking around pretending you ain't feeling me? That shit's so funny when I start ripping all this on you. You look like a mixture between Bart Simpson and Mystical. Thinking it's just like that with your mom make pornos. You look like fucking Fred Durst with cornrows. You got diseases in your venereal. Your teeth look like you trying to eat your stereo. Try to fuck with me, even make my white hurt. I know you got the yellow stains under that cheap white shirt. Try to bring it down. MCs just don't start shit. I'll buy you a new outfit, but I won't go to Target. It's like that. Don't have to talk about your whack raps, cause I'll be fat. When I kick the rap, you just collapse, and it's like that. I'll be the fattest when the battle's over. Drop the mic, call me back when your dad gets sober. Always spitting my lines, thinking that he's fresher. Spitting idea lines, the only way you'll ever sell a record. So why'd you do that? You know I be crew fat. You know what? You need to take your whole fucking crew back to school. Black, that's how it goes. Pull up the stool, I'm the teacher. I'm about to wear your bitch ass out like his sneakers. You MCs to me is just geekers. This cat stays close to my dick like a beeper. Okay, otherwise, you've been a mistake since you climbed up your mother's thighs. Don't even know why I burst with rapping. You and Peace are cute cause your little shirts are matching. That's really cool. You know you need to back off. You had an hour and a half in the bathroom and you jacked off. That's how it went. MCs just get fake quick. I know you had some time so your rhymes are premeditated, so save this. Hey yo, it's time to murder you. From the crowd, yo, all I heard was booze. Yo, it's all good up on this mic, I straight pound. And I'll never get beat by a cat that looks like Homie the Clown. So try to bring that back, my material's ill. Your pants used to be white until your period spilled.
LA Weekly named Larson's battle with Peace as being one of the best rap battles of all time in 1999. Following his victory, he was offered a high contract deal with Puff Daddy and Bad Boy Records, but declined, choosing to build Rhymesayers Entertainment with Atmosphere. Larson was friends with a producer named DJ Abilities. The two met while they were teenagers, as Ability lived with both Michael and his mother. They decided to form the group Eyedea and Abilities in 1999. Their first album was was titled Firstborn, released on October 1st, 2001. The record was a smash success in the hip-hop underground and solidified the duo as a group to look out for. On this album, Eyedea showcased his high concept thinking, adept storytelling, emotional vulnerability, and overall technical prowess. The next big release from Rhymesayers was Atmosphere's seminal God Loves Ugly, released on June 11, 2002. This album was actually covered in another video on the channel, the top 200 rap albums of all time commentary, which will be linked in the description below for you to watch. But to repeat what was said in that video, when this album was initially released, it was met with mostly positive praise but was widely misunderstood. A lot of people found the record to be misogynistic and degrading towards women, and saw Slug as an indignant and pretentious protagonist, but that wasn't the case. Slug was very vulnerable, raw, and honest, and is venting about his own frustration with heartbreak and addiction. The title God Loves Ugly is trying to show to listeners that even if they have internal struggles, vices, or aren't quote-unquote traditionally good looking, that they are still loved and bring value to the world. It has several top-tier rap songs on it, including the title track, F You Lucy, and A Girl Named Hope. If you're someone who cares a lot about influence, this album was extremely influential to the rise of emo rap in the late 2010s. But Slug was doing that 15 years prior and took a much more purist approach to the style. Following this was the Eyedea solo release, The Many Faces of All Over Heart, released on July 1st, 2002. The album was released under Michael's All Over Heart alias, a homonym for All of Her Heart, and was entirely produced by Eyedea as well. Like the title and cover suggests, Michael on this record dove into different personalities and sides of himself. The next notable Rhymesayers release was Brother Ali's sophomore album, Shadows on the Sun, released on May 27, 2003. The record was entirely produced by Ant and received widespread critical praise and was one of the label's highest selling records. While born in Madison, Wisconsin, Ali began rapping at age 8 and moved to Minneapolis in 1992 when he was about 15 years old. His connection to Minneapolis caught the eyes and ears of Rhymesayers founding members, and Ali was invited to be an opening act on tours and live shows, as well as being a host for local performances and events, as Ali admired their ethics and morals behind the music business.
One of the things that I noticed about these men, about Siddiq and about Slug and about Ant and about, is that if you're sincere, they will tell you everything that there's no secrets.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody's more open about what they do than Rhymesayers. So there's no secret. There's no like, oh, they're just doing, no.
Holding information.
No, there's none of that.
Yeah.
There's none of that. Kevin Beecham, you know what I'm saying? Sky Raw, like all of these people that really, you know, Jaybird,
yes.
all of these people that built this thing, you can, if you're sincere, now I'm saying if you're on some like, if you're obviously jealous, then like, yeah, the door, like the hearts aren't gonna open for you.
Of course.
But if you talk to anybody in this city, including me, that's how I started with them, is that I showed up and was like, y'all are doing something very right. And I don't want anything from you, but I would like to learn. I would like the opportunity to learn.
Yes, dog.
So Siddiq was like, yeah, roll with us and learn. You know what I'm saying? Go over Ant's crib and just watch how they do it. And there's nobody's hiding anything.
Around 2003, a secret group formed consisting of Slug, Aesop Rock, Blueprint, Eyedea, and Illogic. They formed due to sharing similar creative interests and were mutual fans of each other's work, but they never released a full-length album or song. They only have a couple of features together. Aesop and Illogic were not signed to Rhymesayers at this time, interestingly enough. Aesop was on LP's Definitive Jux, and Illogic was on Waitlist Recordings. The reason why they never released an album was because, in his own words, they, quote, made the same song 12 times. Then Eyedea teamed back up with Abilities for the E&A album, released on March 23, 2004. It seemed with each new release his technical ability continued to improve. At this point, with 3 albums deep in hip-hop, Larson wanted to branch out and try new things. He formed the group Carbon Carousel, an alternative rock band, releasing the album The Sum of All Things, or The Healing Power of Scab Picking, on October 15, 2006. He also fronted an improvisational jazz group called Face Candy, where they recorded live performances to put on records. They released the album This Is Where We Were on November 21, 2006. Larson continued to hone his versatility, diving deeper into spoken word poetry. The next record to be covered is probably the label's best release to date, MF Doom's Food, released on November 16, 2004. Doom had issues with major label during his time with his group KMD. He was drawn to work with independent labels such as Rhymesayers and earlier that year Stone's Throw with the release of his classic album Mad Villainy. He also worked with Definitive Jux on the Farewell Fondle album in 2001, where he re-released his classic 1999 track Dead Vent on the label. Doom took to Rhymesayers as he admired their artistic output and used them as a distributor for his music. He attended some live shows with signees like Eyedea and Slug. Back to the group Felt, consisting of Murs and Slug. As of this video's making, they've released 4 self-titled albums. Like for many, their best album was Felt 2, a tribute to Lisa Bonet, released on July 12, 2005. The album was meant to be a tribute to the actress Lisa Bonet. One of the more interesting signings to the label is the now YouTuber Mac Levo. He signed to Rhymesayers around 2004, where he released his album 1111 on October 9, 2007. Prior to signing with Rhymesayers, Lethal was also in the battle rap circuit, winning Triple Damn in 2002 and was runner-up in 2001 and 2004. Mac was introduced to Rhymesayers by touring and opening up for the likes of Atmosphere, Brother Ali, and most notably Siddiq. He looked out to them as a business and wanted to open his own label. Lethal only joined temporarily to get his name out there so he could build a big enough fan base to launch his own record label, Black Clover Records.
At what point were you like, you know what, like I want to do my own thing, like being on a label's not working out, I'm gonna launch Black Clover, like
yes.
How did that all happen?
So Rhymesayers, you know, Atmosphere at the time, like they were turning down deals with Rick Rubin. Like every major label was trying to sign Atmosphere, and they're like, you, we're going to do it ourselves. And I loved the ethos of that. And I was just like, well, if they can do that, I want to do that. Independence has always been, I mean, you get it. Like I mean, why answer to somebody else? So I knew that putting out an album with them would be a great opportunity because I could tour with Atmosphere, I could tour with Brother Ali, people like that, and be exposed to thousands of people every night watching me perform my records. So I did that, and I put out an album with them, and they were great, but it was still, it felt like I was going at somebody else's pace. It felt like I was still answering to somebody. They made all the decisions, and I went, I don't even want to be on an indie label. A major label. I don't even want to be on a small or big indie label. I want to just put my own money into this, put out my own records and build my own fan base on my own, even if it takes way longer or I reach less people. So that's when I started Black Clover, because I was like, it was a great experience. I appreciate Rhymesayers for everything they did for me, but I can do this all on my own.
He also had some issues with his previously mentioned 1111 album. To his account, Rhymesayers wouldn't allow him to release the album he really wanted, so he had to make an entirely different album to adhere to what the label wanted. This led Lethal to bootleg the original version of the record you wanted to release.
I made a completely different album that I worked really hard on for nearly 2 years, and Rhymesayers wasn't seeing the vision. They just didn't, that's not the type of album that they signed me to make. And I, at one point, got kind of frustrated because I made an album and I kept refining it and making it better, and it just wasn't coming out. They weren't releasing it. And I don't know if they saw eye to eye with it or whatever their reasons were, So I made a completely different album and called it 1111. And it was, in hindsight, dumb. I should have named it something different. I should have done several things different with that record. But the original 1111, the album that I actually made under the working title 1111, was a completely different body of work. And it had a lot of really well-crafted lyrical pieces on there and things that I thought were really good representations of what I wanted to be as an artist at that time. That's not what ended up coming out. What ended up coming out was an album I made in like 2 or 3 months. And that's the one that they ended up releasing. And I just think they liked the aesthetic better, the beats better. But it's confusing because it ended up being 2 different albums, even though they have kind of the same title, even though it's 2 completely different albums.
In 2008, Rhymesayers began to sponsor the annual Soundset Music Festival, a hip-hop festival held in the Minnesota-St. Paul area over Memorial Day weekend. People travel from across the world to attend. Rhymesayers have been the foundation for the Soundset, with Atmosphere performing there every year since its inception. To date, they've had over 400 different performers. Eyedea reunited with Abilities for their final album By the Throat on July 21st, 2009, with many fans citing this release as the group's best, and it's easy to see why. It's like all of Michael's past experiences with Abilities, Face Candy, and Carbon Carousel combined, and resulted in several jaw-dropping, rock-inspired hip-hop tracks. Abilities' production capabilities also improved, showcasing his diversity and, no pun intended, ability to work with any sound and style. However, while things looked to be going nowhere up for the label, it turned for the worse on October 16th, 2010, when Larson was found deceased in a St. Paul apartment, dying of a drug overdose in his sleep due to respiratory depression. The specific drugs in question in his system at the time of this video's making have not been revealed to the public, but according to the Ramsey County Medicinal Examiner's Office, it was caused by opiate derivatives. This was a deeply saddening loss for the hip-hop scene, as Larson was a once-in-a-blue-moon talent. E&A were honored with the star outside on the mural for the Minneapolis nightclub First Avenue, located at 701 First Avenue North, Minneapolis, Minnesota. On Christmas Day 2013, it was revealed that the official E&A Facebook page that the star was registered under the name Eyedea on the online star register to honor him. Lots of MCs have shown their respect to the deceased battler, such as Murs, Atmosphere, A$AP Rock, Sadistic, Immortal Technique, Blueprint, and more in both song and online.
Where did I set my drink? Let's think. Oh, I got one more special one to do before I get out of here. You guys ready to see my friend's Death Cube? Huh? You ready? Again, this is an old rap trick. I'm going deaf. You guys ready to see Death Cube? Yeah! Oh man, I'm still so hard of hearing. This sucks. Here we go. This is my favorite song I ever wrote. It's called Skinny. It's painful. Wise man used to say to me, don't play with smoke and mirrors. You might see something you weren't ready to see, or worse, you might start to believe that you're actually here. Go around, fucker.
Despite such a huge blow to the label, they were ultimately able to recover and get back to releasing quality music, such as the final record to be covered in this video, A$AP Rock's The Impossible Kid, released on April 29, 2016. At this time, A$AP had already built a name for himself with multiple classic records with definitive Jux. After Def Jux collapsed, he wanted to join another independent label and found Rhymesayers to be a natural fit for his sound and style. He was already familiar with their work thanks to this time in the Orphanage supergroup and live shows with the likes of Slug and Eyedea. At the time of The Impossible Kid's release, he had already released albums on Rhymesayers like 2012 Skeleton, but as good as records like that were, The Impossible Kid still stands as one of Ace's most successful, accessible, and best records to date with rave reviews across the board. Rhymesayers built one of the strongest rosters in hip-hop, including the aforementioned names like Atmosphere, Brother Ali, Eyedea, and A$AP Rock. There was also Star Rock, Evidence of Dilated Peoples, Blueprint, POS of Doomtree, and more. Some of these names have since parted ways with Rhymesayers, but it remains that they house some very talented artists. However, Rhymesayers hit a bit of a bump in the road with the release of two artists in 2020, Dem Atlas and Prof. The two artists were accused of abuse, sexual misconduct, and racism respectively. At the time of this video's making, there's been no charges filed, and these claims still remain to be allegations. They also had to close down the record store Fifth Element on April 1st, 2020. The shop had been open since 1989. Around 2021, Brother Ali took his leave from Rhymesayers because he wanted to have more creative control and wanted to pursue different career endeavors he couldn't while signed to a label he wasn't in charge of.
What for you was the main, why'd you break away and decide to do your own thing?
Man, it's just, you grow and you start to have your own ways that the more you learn, the more you have certain things that you want to do and ways that you want to do things, and more so just like how you want to feel. And, I realized that the things that I wanted to do were like, I've grown as a person and like what I offer the world. So like, not only do I do these like sold out tours across the country, I also delivered the Nobel Peace Prize forum, like keynote address at the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
I've like lectured at Harvard and Princeton,
right.
And you know what I mean? I also am I have a leader in the Muslim community. Mm-hmm. I also want to write and do podcasts and all these kind of things. And then also I want things to feel a certain way. And I just realized like the things that I want to do for them to build those, it wouldn't even be responsible for them to build those into that label because it would just be me. Like the things that I was requiring was that. And then also there was also some, when you're building something as you go, you have certain ideas about what this is and things like that. And so, I discovered over time that like, oh, I don't own this label and I don't have really a vote in it. It's not mine. I always kind of felt like it was mine.
That brings us to today. The most recent releases as of this video's making are Atmosphere's Gestures on September 19th, 2025, along with A$AP Rock's I Heard It's a Mess There Too, released on October 27th, 2025. This marked A$AP's second album in 2025, the first being Black Hole Super Red, released on May 30th, 2025. That concludes the history of Rhymesayers Entertainment, an incredibly fascinating and underrated record label that should be listed up there as one of the greatest hip-hop labels to ever exist. Their imprint on hip-hop shouldn't go unnoticed, as because of them we were blessed with multiple classic releases. Be sure to comment your thoughts on this incredible label.